Today, I woke up to quite possibly the worst email you can receive from Amazon. It said, your Amazon.com selling privileges have been removed. On top of that, a few days ago, I got a message from Amazon saying that my main product is under investigation. And Amazon basically took down my listing and they took all my inventory that was in storage, in active status, and put it into reserve status, basically meaning I couldn't sell any of my inventory. And the worst part about all of this is right now is probably the worst time that this could possibly happen because I'm in the middle of trying to sell my business. So having issues with my listing and having issues with my inventory is the last thing that I wanted to have to deal with right now. And in this video, I'm gonna share exactly what happened, why my listing was taken down, why all my inventory was taken from active and put into reserve. And I'm also gonna share why my selling privileges were removed. Then I'm gonna show everything I'm doing to try to fix the situation. And at the end of this video, I'll tell you about what happened after I filmed this video, because the 5 days after I filmed this video, a lot happened, including some really big news that's pretty awesome, but also one of my worst fears came true with Performance Nut Butter, and I'll talk about that at the end of this video. But let me first explain exactly what happened, why my selling privileges were removed, and why my listing went from being active to inactive. So this is the email that I got from Amazon a few days ago. This is the first issue that I had where my listing actually went down, and it said, we are reviewing your inventory for your ASIN, and then it's the ASIN for my main product. Due to the following negative customer return comments, food product that expired in July, it's now October 30th, which basically means someone returned one of my products and said, hey, this product was expired. That's it. That one comment from someone that returned the product was enough for Amazon to completely take down my listing and take all my inventory and put it into a reserve status, which basically means Amazon is checking all my inventory to make sure that it's still good and that it's not expired. Now, one important thing to note, I know my product. I know that none of the product in the Amazon warehouse should be expired because I've sent in fresh batches and it has a long shelf life, which leads me to believe one of a few different things happened. Either one, someone bought my product a year or two ago, never used it, and then bought a fresh one and then just returned the old one that was expired, which if that happened, whoever did that, that's extremely rude because you basically handicapped my business and just so that you could get a return for your product. So that's option number one. Option number two is maybe a year or two ago when I sent in inventory to Amazon, it kept it in the warehouse, and instead of shipping out the old inventory first, every time I'd send a new inventory, it would just ship out the new inventory to customers. So those are the two possibilities. I know that none of the inventory in the last year I've sent into Amazon should be expired by now. And when this happened, the first thing that I did, and the first thing that I recommend you do, is I switched my inventory from fulfilled by Amazon to fulfilled by merchant, because I do have some product at my warehouse and I didn't want to completely make my listing deactivated. Though to be fair, I don't think my actual listing was completely taken down. I think it just said, hey, this item's out of stock and won't be in stock for a few weeks. But that still hurt my sales because, as you know, people on Amazon don't want to wait a few weeks for a product to come in back into stock. They're gonna just go find some other product instead. Now, we haven't even talked about Amazon removing my selling privileges. I'll talk about that in just a minute because that's actually a completely separate issue. But basically on the first day after there was this return and they took down my listing and put all my inventory into reserve status, I had no inventory that was active. Then in the next day or two, a few of the items were processed and were trickled into the active status. And what had happened was I basically sent in some more inventory like a few weeks before that. And so I think what was happening was the inventory that I had just sent in, they knew that it was fresh and they were putting that into the active column. But it was only like I had like 6 units left, 8 units left. And funny enough, the person that's looking to buy the business noticed that. And they sent me an email like, hey, what the hell's going on? Why is there only 8 units left of P&B? And I had to explain the entire situation, which is exactly what I wanted to avoid. I was hoping that this situation would get solved before he noticed. I wasn't trying to be tricky or hide this from him. I just didn't think it was that big of an issue and I didn't want him to have to worry about it. Now that brings us to today, where I got this email that basically says your Amazon.com selling privileges have been removed. And it goes on to say, hello, we are contacting you because you appear to have violated the following policies on Amazon.com. Misuse of ratings, feedback, or reviews, misuse of sales rank, misuse of search and browse. Now, These are all prohibitive behaviors on Amazon.com, and they include, but are not limited to, hiring third parties to try and improve ASIN rank or get reviews. And then it goes on to say a bunch of things that are prohibited. Now, this is not the first time I've gotten a message like this. I got a message like this back in March. And here's the thing, I don't do any of that shady stuff on Amazon because, to be honest with you, I'm already so transparent and honest about everything I do on Amazon. If I did something shady, if I ended up getting in trouble with Amazon, it's not worth it for me. Like, the risk to reward isn't worth it. I do have a lot of friends that are very successful Amazon sellers that do a ton of shady stuff. But since my entire YouTube channel, I talk about my Amazon business, I haven't been doing anything that could potentially get my Amazon account in trouble. So as you could imagine, it's a little bit of a surprise to me that I get these messages. Now, I did contact a friend and mentor of mine, James, and James has said that he's been suspended from Amazon or been in trouble with Amazon 7, 8 times, and that every time it gets resolved. In fact, he said that basically this happens sometimes accidentally. And I firmly believe that it was either an accident or maybe people that watch this YouTube channel were trying to help me out or something like that and leave reviews. But at this point, I honestly don't know what's gonna happen. I will be honest, even though I got that message, it doesn't seem like any of my selling privileges have been removed. And when I got that message back in March, the same thing was true. They sent me a message saying your Amazon.com selling privileges have been removed, but they didn't actually remove any of my selling privileges and my sales kept staying the same. I don't know if this is just another one of those freak accidents, and I also don't know what the resulting investigation of all my inventory, basically to see if it was gonna be expired or not, what that's gonna be. But what I'm gonna do in just 10 seconds here is cut to future Travis and see what ends up happening. But before we go to future Travis, make sure to hit that like button because this is me being honest about some really behind the scenes things and sharing some things that a lot of people probably wouldn't talk about. So hit that like button and let's see what future Travis has to say. A lot has happened in the 5 days since I filmed the video that you just got done watching. So I wanted to add this as an update because, as I mentioned, there's some really big positive news, but also one of the biggest fears, something that really annoys me and really made me angry, happened with Performance Nut Butter. And I'll talk about that in just a minute. But first I wanna finish up on what happened with the account suspension, with them taking down my product listing and basically taking all my inventory and putting it into reserve status. Now, one of the things I learned is always try to get Amazon on the phone. It's not always gonna be helpful, but always, as soon as possible, try to get them on the phone. And you can do that by going into your Amazon seller account, going to help, clicking on what issue most closely matches what you're gonna do, and then you put some information about the issue, scroll down, put in your phone number, and they'll give you a call. Now, here's an important tip. Amazon seller support is terrible 90% of the time, but 1 out of 10 times, you get someone that can actually help you. And there's some different tricks out there on how to get someone to actually be able to help you. One thing, always try to get an American on the phone. I mean, there's exceptions, but generally speaking, non-American employees of Amazon just can't help you out nearly as well as a US-based one. I've heard different tricks to get US-based people on. You can try asking for the catalog team, the onshore team. I've heard a bunch of different options. And do me a favor and leave in the comments down below if you have been able to get a hold of a US Amazon person using a certain tactic, what tactic you actually used. But when I did get a hold of someone from Amazon, I ended up asking them, hey, what's going on? What happened to my inventory? And I asked them, can you expedite the process? And they said, yeah, sure, we'll expedite the process. I don't know for sure, but I think by calling in and asking them to expedite the process, I think it did have some effect because the whole issue ended up getting resolved over the next few days. And now my account is fine. The suspension never seemed to have really gone into effect. It said that my selling privileges were suspended, but it never suspended my account selling privileges. And all my inventory that was in reserved is back into active and the listing is good to go. But despite all my Amazon issues getting resolved, there's still a really big issue. As I mentioned, one of my biggest fears with Performance Nut Butter came true. I'll talk about that in just a second, but there's good news and there's bad news. And as far as the good news, I'll actually save that for next week's video. So I got some really exciting, really good news around Performance Nut Butter. But on the negative side, I've been having issues, if you've been watching this channel, I've been having issues with my manufacturer over the last year, 2 years. It's been a huge pain in the butt, and they just double charged me for a production run. They've been, in my opinion, just taking way more money than they should be. And so what I'm gonna do is next week, I'm gonna do a video announcing some really exciting, some really good news. And then the week after that, I'm gonna do a video talking about how my manufacturer scammed me out of tens of thousands of dollars and how to avoid being scammed by your manufacturer. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, because when you do that, you'll be notified about next week's video about the good news and the week after that's video about the not so good news. So hit the subscribe button and the bell notification, and remember to enjoy the journey.